I see a Budweiser. Go ahead and hold it up.
Yes.
That was the biggest clue.
Yes, right
Doing
there.
it for Dale.
Man, it's so many gimmicks, right? I feel like they're making it a lot more complicated than it needs to be. I mean, a lot of people, you get polarizing opinions on DRS.
I know you guys know exactly what I'm talking about here, but sometimes the effort, it's all about the boys. You know, like, hey, you know, life sucks sometimes, and you need the boys.
iRacing kind of always has a tendency to kind of buff
Yes.
the new cars just a little bit. I'm not going to go on record saying it's because they want people to spend money on their platform and buy all the new content.
Confirmed.
But
Yes.
but
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to round number 4 here of SimCAR here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. I am Mike Braun. Tonight, I will be commentating tonight. In the production booth, we will have Adam Thompson, and joining me for the first time here on SimCAR is Daniel Solomon. And Daniel, we're visiting a track that both of us talked about racing on ourselves. Run some GT3 action around here. What are your thoughts? How do you feel about this track, and what do you think GT3s are going to be like tonight?
Well, honestly, Mike, I think if you're going to run a car around here, a GT3 is definitely a happy middle ground. It gives you plenty of performance, but still not so much that you're finding you have to fight the car the whole way around. Well, except the Mustang, you know, you've always got to fight that, especially if there is a crowd nearby. But it should be a pretty good battle. I did see a good race here the other day, actually. It was a lot of fun. And also, as well, something to keep in mind is the drafting opportunities with having such a long straight, especially where you have the hairpin leads into a bit of a straight, that long right-hander. I can see plenty of passing opportunities happening there into turn 1.
No, absolutely. That straightaway, that is a great call out. That front straightaway is a long, massive straightaway leading into a pretty medium to hard braking zone into turn 1. So that should lend for some great passing. As we're right now into qualifying, we still have about 3.5 minutes left. I think we're going to jump on board with somebody to maybe get a little flying lap around here and see what it looks like as we're coming around this real long track with 15 turns. It's got a real long sweeper to come onto that front straightaway, but I think we're going to jump on board with somebody to get a lap around. Looks like it's going to be Kevin when he comes around here, leading around. Looks like he's coming into one of the last sections here. Looks like about turned 11 down into 12, that downhill section. You want to lead us around the rest of this lap here?
I just seen the bus and I went straight underneath it, ladies and gentlemen. It didn't even stop and put the lights on to flash, but it's definitely a fun track. I'd like to give you the corner names on this one, but honestly, I'd be sandbagging the living stuffing out of it on that one. But it's definitely, as we can see here, we're in the 69 car right now, and this is that long right-hander I was talking about, and you definitely want to carry as much exit speed as you possibly can as you go down this beautifully long straight. And I got to say, what a fantastic view there in the background. Those beautiful mountains. I mean, the hills are going to be alive to the sound of GT3 cars, especially if you turn the volume up, ladies and gentlemen. Certainly, I would rather listen to them than me, but you can see there, he's round to turn 1, a little bit of a kick there into turn 2. Definitely got to keep an eye out for that sausage curve you can see on the inside. Another one just there. Don't want to catch the car, you know, get the weight balance upset. You see a little bit of a blind left-hander, kind of similar to one of the corners there at the ring, which I know our director will be familiar with the one I'm talking about there. And another little straight there. He's going to go into a very, very tight left-hander. Now, this corner is definitely a lot tighter than it looks. You know, you really got to get the car slow down and definitely try not to push on corner exit, followed by a nice little kink there, a little bit of a left-hander with a 90-degree right. A little bit blind as you go up over the crest and into the braking zone. And again, another right-hander you can see on there, a little bit of a rubbered line coming in. And again, beautiful elevation changes apologies. As you can see there, the pits are there on the right, scenically, that is. Another left-hander going up and down the hill and up again. And again, another blind corner. Definitely quite hard to position the car and have a good grasp of where you are in terms of, like, you know, your position on the track. You know, it's quite a wide track. And again, these blind corners really having an effect, you know, trying to navigate that. Again, another left-hander. Very, very tight, more than the 90 degrees. I'd say very sharp hairpin. And this is going to be one of the key corners here. This long 180 degrees right-hander that leads onto the back straight. You can see there, he's going to let the car travel out a little bit there. And yep, penultimate corner, the long right-hander. And that's going to take him down the start-finish straight.
Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, there's a lot of blind turns on this track, and you really have to trust yourself going into a lot of these turns. As we're closing in on the end of qualifying, got about 30 seconds left as Kevin Bogart taking us around the lap, and that's going to put him in the 15th spot right now overall, and it looks like to put him about 4th in the amateur class. So good run so far for qualifying. And just remember, we are going to be qualifying for what we consider a heat race. Then it's a 15-minute heat race, and then the top 8 will invert so that we go into the final, and that final is a 45-minute long race. So looks like we are done and dusted with qualifying, and we will get the grid set up here shortly, and we can show you the grid. So on the pole is the winner from the last 2 weeks in the Pro Division, Blake Reynolds. Romain Rateau qualifying in that 2nd spot. 3rd spot goes to Matt Kingsbury, with Ray Kingsbury right on that outside. So Kingsbury row number 2. Then you got Kevin Fanning in the 5th spot. Then you got your first amateur, Anthony Flores, qualifying in the 6th spot. Only amateur in the top 12. So great qualifying time for Anthony. Then you got Brandon Lambert in the 7th spot. Next to him will be Christian Youngwall. Justin Nasir in the 9th spot. And in the 10th spot, Daniel Colita.
So we have a look at 11th there. You got Key O'Brien there for the Overick team, the 28 car. As we have a look at 12th, John Marchbanks. My apologies there. Definitely power to you for having a fantastic last name. It just, the downside would be if you went on a holiday, I think you'd have a hard time finding the cup that's got your name on it, but that's okay. Jeff Johnson's there in 13th with Paul Mikolajic, my apologies there, with Carson Quint at 15th, Kevin Bogart in 16th, that's who we saw just a few moments ago, with Tim Brokaw in 17th, and Josh Stoltz in 18th with SKS Motorsports. In 19th, Brian Sohn with Marwan Mofta joining him in 20th. As we have a look at 21st, John Eversole for the Panda Spec Motorsports. That's awesome. His teammate alongside him, Travin DeFleur. Josh Ondo in 23rd, with Peter McDade in 24th.
And then in the 25th spot, we've got Kerry Freeman. 26th is Brian Sebsky. Sabelski, there we go. And then Joshua Suchi in the 27th spot. Nathan Fennell in 28th. Elias Roman in 29th. Justin Hall in the 30th spot. We will talk about that later. And then Jason Lynn in the 31st and last spot. As we are pulling around and looking like we are going to be doing a full parade lap. Daniel, I want to congratulate you on your first time reading the grid and getting all the fun names in the middle of the field. So good job with that. I got thrown under that one my first time as well. So we all learned the names one way or another around here. But track temperature looks to be a little spicy today. Looks like it's going to be 109 degrees right now for us Americans. And 111 actually is what it's saying now. So, you know, we were talking about these blind corners and these GT3s getting around here. But that 111 track temperature, that is going to be pretty warm for these guys to get around.
Yeah, definitely a warmer track temp, but I gotta say, these guys enjoying that full parade lap, and I can't say that, you know, I definitely want to do it as well. Some of these cars are just, well, to be fair, if you put me in any of these cars, I'd be very happy to drive them. Obviously, I've got my favorites, you know, the Porsche. I've always found driving that, to get the most out of that car, you have to be really late on the brakes, and that's not really my driving style. The Ferrari, beautiful car. Again, I find that one over-rotates a little bit under braking. What I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen, is that I lack driver skill, and that's okay. That's why I'm in the commentary booth. The Corvette, I gotta be honest, I'm not normally an American guy, but I really like what they've done with that car. But I will say this, looking through the grid, I'm yet to see a McLaren. So my British roots there are disappointed yet again.
Yeah, you're going to be a little disappointed because there isn't one so far this season. But if you have not noticed on iRacing, they have teased a picture of the new one. So I think in September we're hopefully getting a new McLaren. So that's pretty exciting for us McLaren fans. Hopefully it breathes fire out the back end like the old model. As you see the group coming around into the middle of the track right now, leading them around. Blake Reynolds on that front row with Romain Rateau on the outside, right behind that iRacing pace car. As we're looking at back in the field a little bit, Marwan Mafta back there in the Ford. We were talking about the Fords earlier. There's quite a bit of Fords in this race. We've seen them start off the race really good, and then the tires start to warm up and they start sliding back a little bit. So with this high track temperature, it's going to be interesting to see if that is the case. As we see the pace car finally bringing them around turn 15, what is aptly named the Gallop, so that we can gallop down the front straightaway. Is that bad, or is that okay?
Yeah, it was a pretty bad pun.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll just go with it. But call it turn 15 as they're coming around. Looks like they are coming down into the front straightaway section now. So the pace car will be pulling off the track, and your pole sitter Blake Reynolds is going to lead them down and see how this start comes up. So a little bit of lag coming from slow motion broadcast booth. We are overseas right now, so the signal's a little rough, but jumping onto that early jump. Good start from Blake Reynolds, getting a good pull, and it looks like he's going to be bringing Matt Kingsbury with him in tow. Like we were talking about that long front straightaway, so you see him fanning out a little bit, diving down into that first turn, and you've got Kingsbury in that second spot, and we got Ray Kingsbury in the fourth spot. So you got Kingsbury in second, Reynolds out in front, Matt Kingsbury in second, Romain Rateau hanging on to that third spot. Look at all that inside line. That section right there is a little hairy, but here they come down that straightaway, Daniel, into that hard braking zone. Let's see how these guys come through.
Well, we've got Porsche versus Porsche, and to be fair, I would want to be on the inside in this scenario. Definitely make that car as wide as possible, as I thought there was going to be a little nudge there, but clean racing so far. And it's good to see the Kingsbury brothers second and third at this point, but can they use it as a team tactic to potentially pull away? Reynolds already trying to capitalize on that. I say that, he's not been able to make a break. The guy's very, very quick. Oh, and that's the spinner. It's one of the Kingsbury brothers, and it is Ray Kingsbury. He's gone round more than the Sugar Babes, and he is off the track.
That's a tough break for Ray. It looks like they were just going side by side, and we'll get a replay of that here shortly to see who that was. Looks like Romain running with him. Coming down in, Romain goes on that inside line, trying to get a move done. And I'm not sure if Ray does a little, turn back into him. Let's see. Oh, Romain just kind of sticking his nose in there. Ray wasn't expecting it, and it gets spun around. So tough break from Ray right there, dropping him all the way down to the 19th spot. So just remember, this is a 15-minute race, so it is kind of like a sprint race, and then we'll take the top 8 and invert for the main event. So that's kind of the focus area that we end up with, Daniel, is that 8th spot. There's usually a lot of action around there, and we'll have to see how that holds up as we're currently sitting in that 8th spot with Kevin Fanning. So, Daniel, how would you play that? If you know the field's going to be inverting, how would you play that position?
Well, that all depends on your strengths and weaknesses there, Mike. Now, generally, I would have ended up starting at the back of the grid, especially around this track. It is not on what I would call the Princess Approved list, as we see a little clip there of Kevin Bogart. But definitely that 8th spot has high value.
Yeah, it definitely does. It'll bring you out to the front in the main event. But then, if you're in that 9th spot, as you see Kevin just go a little too deep on the braking in there, I'm going to drop him back. But you want to hold on to that 8th spot and hopefully don't get beat out and get dropped to 9th, and then you're really messed up. So Paul Mikulicek just changing his picture on us. Yeah, we won't talk about that one. So We got about 3 minutes down and 12 minutes still left to go. You still got Blake Reynolds out in front. The last couple weeks, Blake has definitely been showing his way around in that Porsche. And if I remember correctly, he was actually looking forward to this race here this week. He felt pretty good and pretty confident, and you could definitely tell by getting on the pole and starting to pull away already by almost a full second now on Matt Kingsbury. As we're still looking at Paul right now, but we jump back up to the lead car, that beautiful black-purple car number 66 of Blake Reynolds, Solpec Precision Racing car out in front. And then we drop back into that 15th spot. We got a good battle for 15th right now with Tom Brokaw in that bright yellow Mustang with a great battle with Elias Romaine right behind him. But this is a good battle coming down into that turn one, that hard braking zone. And then you want to make sure you want to carry that speed through here. So it is definitely a tricky spot to be able to carry that speed through turn 2 and back under those hard brakes in turn 3, Daniel.
Well, Elias Roman, he is definitely having a good day so far. He's up 14 spots, absolutely shifting in the bombshell racing team Ferrari there, and definitely having a lot of fun in the process. 14 spots, considering it's a 29 car grid, he's doing absolutely fantastically, and it's fair to say if he continues at this pace, he may find himself in that mystical top 8. We also see Anthony has made it into the top 4. He's up 2 spots, definitely not moving as hard on the charging battle as it stands, but there is still a battle going on for the top 3 as it stands. Reynolds has been able to pull away about 8 attempts, but Romain Ratou, he is right behind one of the Kingsbury brothers, Matt, in the 21 Mustang there, and definitely applying the pressure. As you see there, he's trying to make a move on the inside. He's having a little bit of a sniff, and that Mustang pushes wide, chooses not to fight too hard for that one, perhaps deciding, this battle was not worth the risk versus the reward.
No, definitely. And then Romain getting that inside line up into that 2nd spot. Kingsbury dropping back to 3rd, but you got Anthony Flores running in the 4th spot right now. That is your top amateur right now, running in the top 4 here early on. That is a great job from him as leading him down that front straightaway one more time, and he's got Youngwall right behind him in tow down the front straightaway. So a great showing from Anthony as we looks like we may have a crash here. Looks like John Ebersol getting a little hairy, getting off track, but able to collect it. And so a little more action coming on from behind the field. Oh, it gets on the inside there. A little side-by-side action, a little door handle to door handle, and ends up getting the short end of the stick, does John, as now we're up into that 9th spot. So this is Daniel Colita in that 9th spot, running, trying to, is that 9th spot? No, I think he's down farther than that. Yep, okay, sorry, replay, missed that. New guy, here we go. So Colita spinning out, and everybody just going around him. And a great job from everybody avoiding that, and a good job for him getting on the brakes and hanging on to it. So here we are back with Brandon Lambert in that 8th spot as we're talking that all-important 8th spot, that invert position. Brandon hanging on to it, and it looks like he's got about a second advantage back to Casey O'Brien. And Casey is, on that outside looking in, trying to get into that invert and sit on that pole. But here we go, Romain reeling in Blake Reynolds. It looks like they are coming around that last section right now to come into the front straightaway area, that long right-hander turn. Porsche on Porsche action. Oh man, Ratou pulling in hard, Daniel. He's coming down that straightaway, and we talked about this, that long draft down the front straightaway.
Oh, absolutely. And what he wants to do is keep that Porsche under that rear wing absolutely as long as possible. You know what? If he's going to be able to make the move, he's got to make it stick. And he's not only doing that, he's gone late on the brakes, pushing Reynolds to take the outside line, using some of the overflow of the track there. And these guys are still going side by side, as I believe they're heading around Lagos there. As Ratou, he's got the lead as it stands right now in that 23 car. But Matt Kingsbury back in 3rd. He will be wanting these guys to battle as much as they possibly can, because the more they battle, the more it's going to put him in contention for that top spot on the podium.
Yeah, no, it's a heat race, so we still have one 45-minute main event to come. We're a halfway point right now in the heat race. Out in front now, you've got Romain Ratou with Blake Reynolds in the 2nd spot. Matt Kingsbury about a second behind them in the 3rd spot. And then you got Christian Youngwall running in the 4 spot, not too far back. He was able to get by Anthony Flores, our top amateur. Anthony running in the 5th spot. In 6th spot right now, you've got Justin Nasir in the Porsche. And then in 7th, you've got Kevin Fanning. Not too far back. Look what we've got here. What is going on? Oh, production has broken something. Then we got Justin. Fanning spinning out. As we've talked about, some of these turns are almost kind of like an off camber, and it can be real tricky. And I think Daniel, you were talking about it earlier. These Mustangs can be a handful.
Oh, absolutely. I was originally supposed to drive the endurance race. I'm trying to remember which one it was now. It was the last endurance. Oh, it was Spa. It was Spa 24 hour, and it's the first time in like 3 or 4 years I've not actually got to drive Spa 24 hours. You see there, Kevin Fanning. I think he had a little bit of a nudge potentially on the back of that Porsche, but regardless, you know, he did a little bit of a dance for the audience on that one. But you know, it's definitely very difficult when you get into that car. You know, especially with having the elevation change, having those blind corners, and this is where having that seat time is the biggest asset you can have. Don't get me wrong, the setup needs to be stable, it needs to be secure. That would be priority number 1, but track time, it's pretty much level pegging with that. And you know, certainly going into Spa 24, I ended up withdrawing from the race. I said to the team, I said, look, I cannot drive this car, guys. And I'm a pretty stable driver. I'm not fast, but I'm generally pretty stable. And, you know, you need that car to be planted. And, you know, if you use Road Atlanta as an example, you've got that one chicane, you know, that's particularly blind near the start. You know, that's one corner you've got to learn. You've got that hidden element to it. But with this, half the track is like off-camber blind corner. So, you know what? I'm not surprised that we're seeing a few cars go around. If anything, I'm impressed that we're seeing as few have unintended diversions as we are today.
No, absolutely. And being, you know, the track temperature being as high as it is, that definitely leads to some of these cars getting real loose. And it definitely would not be surprised to see Porsche cars doing some Porsche things with that motor hanging out the backside. And those seem to get a little on the loose side. But as we talk about just about every week, these Mustangs, they can be a handful. And, you know, the guys that can really handle them, are really good with them, but if you're not quite, you know, able to get under them, you could definitely overheat those tires and start dropping down the field. As we're running right now with Daniel Colita in the 21st spot, looking to get by Elias Romain, battled for 20th and 21st. But with Colita spinning out earlier, that's going to promote Casey O'Brien up into that 8th spot now. So Casey O'Brien is in that final transfer position, looking to get into that pole position for the invert in the main event. As we're coming up on 4 minutes to go, 11 minutes down, 4 minutes to go. These guys are going to have about another 2 laps or so to get around. As Romain out in front, and he's got a whole rear mirror full of Blake Reynolds. And this is a time where you really probably don't want to push too hard. You know, first or second, not going to make that much of a difference, but it's, you know, with that invert, Daniel, these guys are just going to end up in the 4th row. So it's, you know, would you battle this out just to, you know, for pride, for winning the sprint race, or would you just kind of mind your own business and just kind of look for some moves?
Well, in the nature of racing, generally people don't settle for anything unless it's that top spot. You know, you go there to race, you go there to drive, and don't get me wrong, the best racing is when basically the gloves are off, the guys are fighting tooth and nail. Don't get me wrong, tactically, is it the smartest thing? Probably not, but are you here to race and be competitive, or are you here to have fun? And for me, I believe you've got to do a little bit of both. And Blake Reynolds, actually, before I even came over to slow motion broadcasting, I watched the feed with Blake Reynolds in it, being interviewed, and he seems like a really nice guy. He seems like he has a lot of fun, and he, you know, really invests in having a good experience. And you know what, I don't think he's going to fight too hard, but I do think he will indeed put up a fight. But at the end of the day, you know, you've got Porsche versus Porsche. These guys are both experienced. You know, there's 3800 IR from Ratu, 4600 from Blake Reynolds. You know, they've been around the block. They know how to handle a car, and I believe that they're going to have that battle, but you know, not take each other out in the process. Not like, you know, Esteban Ocon, for example, his style of driving.
Wow. You had to go there, didn't you? Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
He just enjoys his teammates. That's all we're gonna say is he enjoys teammates. So, as we're back up front with Romain and Blake still going at it, I have to agree with you, Daniel. If the opportunity exists for Blake, he is definitely gonna take that advantage and take that spot. But if it doesn't broaden out, he's just definitely gonna be content to hang there. As John going on the inside of Casey O'Brien. John Majorbanks up into the 8th spot now. So that is that final transfer position as we're closing in on less than 2 minutes to go. So these guys are going to get by for one more lap. And this is that, like we talked about earlier, this is 8th spot. This is for that final transfer, and it's going to be a great battle coming around. As you back up front with the top two, Romain and Blake still going at it in the center of the track right now. Romain Rateau hanging on to it. Blake looking on that inside, going around and taking on that inside line, kind of get that drive down that long front straightaway. They're going to come through that long right-hand sweeper, and you've got Romain on the outside. Looks like it's a little twitchy out there. Looks like it's got some marbles out there. Blake on that inside, able to get on that inside and able to get a line down that inside line. Romain dropping back into that 2nd spot, but he slips in behind that rear wing of Blake on that white flag lap. This is everybody's last lap here in the heat race. Blake Reynolds still able to hang on to that lead as they come into turns 1 and 2, with Romain Rateau still tucked into that back bumper as they come around turn 3 right now. In the 3rd spot, you still got Matt Kingsbury, not too far back, just in case there's a little mistake. He will definitely take advantage of it, but he is in no man's land right now with about 3 seconds ahead and behind. And then Christian Youngwall still hanging on to that 4th spot. Justin Nasir in 5th. Your top amateur still in the top 8. 6th spot, Anthony Flores doing a fantastic job. He's had some great runs so far in the last couple races and had some unfortunate incidents, but good to see him running in the 6th spot right now. As the 7th spot, we've got Brandon Lambert and John Majorbanks in the 8th spot. Still hanging on to that spot, but we're back up front right now with Blake and Romain. Still battling it out, but looks like Romain trying to make a move on that inside, getting a little gutsy in there, and I think that's about where he got into it with Ray Kingsbury earlier onto that race, but here they come around. This is, once again, the white flag for these guys to come around. And if we're talking about this track just being so up and down and you know, blind turns and kind of flat and off camber, Daniel, it makes it tough when you're going door handle to door handle with somebody like this.
Oh, it definitely makes it a lot harder to understand your spatial awareness. But I think Rateau actually very deliberately, you know, let that pass happen when he did, because this huge, long, sweeping section at the end of the race, I figured, you know, he was very deliberately holding back so he can try and make his move at the last minute, but just not quite getting the closing stage of the track as you wish and having to take the 2nd spot. But you know what? That's definitely nothing to shake a stick at. He ended up finishing where he started, you know, definitely not a bad result. It's going to put him in 6th when he restarts for the next race, the main features. We see, for lack of better words, the broadcast having a little bit of a Tourette's moment there. Thankfully, it's a broadcast, not the announcers in this case. Definitely stuff could get colourful there, but you see a couple of last stragglers coming across the line. Free car battle going on there. Very, very close. We see Brian Sabarsky, and these guys are still going at it. At least I hope they do. The checkered flag may mean the official results over, but that doesn't mean you have to stop battling. Not in my world. Who we are now? Travis de Flumer for the Panda Spec Motorsports Blue. I do want to know where they got that team name, but you see as well, he's rocking that Corvette and comes across the checkered line.
Got a last couple guys to come across the line. As we're going to see Brian Sohn come around in the 27th spot in the one and only Audi in the league. Oh, there's 2 this week. There we go. Coming down into that front straightaway. Still got a couple cars to finish behind him. And after we get through that, we will come up with our finishing order. And we will be able to hopefully show you the grid as we come into the next session. So, you know, good battle for that 15-minute heat race. Again, we're going to take that top 8 and invert. We're going to go to points to see what our points look like. This is our championship points for the amateur class. We got John Ebersol with card number 221 out in front with 244 points. Then you got Kevin Bogart in the 2nd spot with 227. Marwin Mafta in third with 200. John Stotts in the 4th spot, 193. And rounding out your top 5 in the amateur class is Travis Deflumer with 183. We'll switch it over to the pro side.
Hey, just an FYI here on these points, guys. Daniel, I know you're talking to me and trying to talk to me in Discord. Every time I try to type on my keyboard, that's when things get a little bit weird for the broadcast. So these points are updated after last race. These are not updated between the heat and the feature.
Dana, go ahead and take the pro one for us.
Well, as we look at the pro class for the SimCAR Championship, in first place you got Carter Hutchison. He's there in the 63 with the Summit Sim Racing, 244 points, very closely followed by Blake Reynolds. Only 5 points in the, well, according to the Zippy map, it's 5 points between first and second. Ray Kingsbury there in third with 187, so a little bit of a gap there. Romain Rateau, he's who we just seen just now get in that second position. Again, as Adam was saying, the points not updated from that last race, so a good points haul for him just now. That maybe bump him up above Kingsbury, but he's there in fourth with Kevin Fanning there in fifth. Now, he did have a little bit of an incident in that last race, so not what he was looking for. And I've got to admit, I do love the heat racing format. Don't get me wrong. If you, for lack of better words, pooch it, it can be quite a harsh punishment. But if you can, have some good attrition, keep the car clean, keep it stable, managing to get in that top 8, very, very valuable for the points haul.
Now, you're absolutely right. So right now we're in what they call a little bit of a warm-up stage, but they usually advance it to get into the finals. So this gives guys a little bit of a break between the heat racer and into the final. As you can see, we are at the Algarve track here, 2 miles and 2.85 miles around, but the track temp still at that spicy 111 degrees. So definitely is going to lead to some very interesting action when we get into that 45-minute race. Yep.
Real quick here, Mike. I know Daniel is new to the broadcast, but let's talk about what we've seen these past few weeks. Week 1, Mustangs started out strong. Didn't finish so strong. Week 2, Mustangs started out strong. Didn't finish too strong. Week 3, you see where I'm going with this? Mustangs starting out strong, not finishing too strong, and that was on tracks with much less heat in them than what we're seeing right now. So could be an interesting one when it comes to the likes of Tim Brokaw starting in 4th place.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be interesting. We've got in the top 5 right now, in that top 5 finishing order in the heat race, you had Porsche, and then Mustang, Porsche, and Mustang. So the same thing, Matt Kingsbury, Kevin Fanning, they end up front quite a bit with these Mustangs. They're able to hang on to them, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see what it looks like when they get going on this hot track. This is definitely a lot warmer than it was last week at VIR. No, we were at Imola last week. The week before was VIR. So this definitely is going to be interesting to see what these guys can do for that 45 minutes as we're in what they call the warm-up stage right now. They usually take about a 3, 4, 5 minutes or so. Give these guys a break to take a break, and then they go through and advance the session. So, Daniel, so far, how would you rate your GT3 SimCAR experience so far?
Oh, it's fair to say it is a good job for a lot of these guys involved that I am not driving. Don't get me wrong. Algarve as a track looks like a lot of fun, but the blind corner's definitely taken a lot to get used to. Myself, I want to be competitive, but I like having things that are a little bit rare. That's why I drive a Volvo. Doesn't mean it's good. It just makes me happy. But, each to their own, right? So, honestly, in this strength of field, I would want to drive the McLaren just to try and, stand out, maybe get a little bit of screen time, try and do something that no one else wants to take on. To me, that would be an enjoyable experience. But the more I look at this track, the more I feel I should be getting behind the wheel. The racing here at SimCAR is very clean. Looks like there's somebody to race for everybody. It's quite an eclectic mix of iRating across the field as well. And I've got to say, the biggest thing that has impressed me so far this evening is, don't get me wrong, when these guys do get it wrong, they handle it so fantastically. Often you can see, for lack of better words, it's like you've gone 10-pin bowling. These guys have got it all settled, all in control. And as I say that, you see a Mustang absolutely doing Mustang things in the background. But You know, it just goes to show that I'm just going to eat my slipper on praising their excellent recovery from accidents.
That's what we refer to as the commentator curse. So just as you mentioned that, they go spinning around. So the session has been advanced. We are ready to go into our 45-minute main. Top 8 finishers in that heat race have been inverted. So on the pole for the main event is John Majorbanks with car number 30. In the second spot, you got Brandon Lambert joining him on that front row. Second row is your first amateur, Anthony Flores, up into that third spot. So as we're talking earlier, that's going to be hopefully a great points haul for him, as he's got about 9 spots on that next amateur. Then you got Justin Nasir in the 4th spot, Christian Youngwall in 5th, Matt Kingsbury in 6th, Romain Rateau in 7th, Blake Reynolds in the 8th spot, Casey O'Brien in 9th, and rounding out your top 10 is Paul Mikolajczyk.
As we have a look at 11th now, we got Ray Kingsbury for that Solpec Precision Racing. He's there in the number 25 car with Jeff Johnson for TWR in 12th. As we have a look at 13th, you got Carsten Quint with Tim Brokaw joining him in 14th. In 15th, you got Josh Stoltz for SKS Motorsports with Marwan Mofta in 16th, with Josh Ondo in 17th. Elias Romain, now, he was really moving up the field last race, and then I'm not sure what happened. I didn't get any warnings, but he dropped back again to 18th. So I'm curious to see how this race goes for him, especially with a little bit of a longer race window there for him. In 19th, you've got Kevin Bogart with Kevin Fanning. That's one of your points leaders at the minute in the 911, probably a 911 for the 20th spot. Daniel Coletta, for Quaco Racing in 21st, with Brian Sabowski in 22nd, with Peter McDade in 23rd, and John Ebersol in 24th.
And then in the 25th spot, you're going to have Joshua Suji in the 27 car. 26th spot is Travis DeFlumer. In the 27th spot is Brian Stone. Nathan Fennell, 28th. Gary Freeman in 29th. Justin Hall in the 30 spot, and Justin Lin in 31st. And I don't think those last 2 guys are on the track, so we will have to finish with Gary Freeman. So a couple guys getting out there in qualifying and not coming out for the race. So as we see the guys coming around the track right now, they just kind of doing a pace lap right now. John Majorbanks out in front on the pole. So this should Brandon Lambert and John out on the front row, and it looks like John will be leading them down the front straightaway. So, you know, we've seen Daniel, the last couple races that we've seen Blake Reynolds be back in that that 4th row, 3rd, 4th row or so, and slowly worked his way up. So just since this is your first time here with the SimCAR Racing, that's going to be one spot that I would highly recommend you watch. And watch these guys work their way through the field. So that should be a pretty interesting race for us. Why don't you go ahead and lead them down the front straightaway for this first time, Daniel?
Okay, what could possibly go wrong, ladies and gentlemen, to quote a very wise man, in some people's opinion, and other people's, he's just a complete tool. Jeremy Clarkson, if you were wondering. But yeah, these guys are currently warming up tires. Now, that's always been another, hit and miss conversation. Some people are into giving it the weave. Some people just drive the car just very steady and just go with the flow. Myself, I just drive the car. I find weaving tires, if I do it, I end up in a ditch over that hill just there. But these guys currently sat behind the pace car. And I've got to say, the pace car driver as well, absolutely fantastic lines. It's almost like he's being driven by a computer at this point, doing a fantastic job. I believe they've got a doctor in there as well. Certainly the iRacing medics are absolutely fantastic on form. But they are getting ready to go around what is affectionately known as Galp Corner. That is the horse racing pun my comrade made earlier. And these guys are going to get ready to do that launch. Now, Major Banks, he's going to be your pole sitter. Now, I do believe these guys can go, for lack of better words, when they get the urge, rather than necessarily going on green. You see Anthony Flores there. He's your top amateur class driver. He's currently sat in 3rd, so a good position for him, way ahead of the competition. There's Johnson back there in 12th, a good gap ahead, and it looks like these guys are going, at least certainly the pace appears to have picked up, and that Corvette is on the move, on the way, and heading down to turn 1.
That is right. You've got John Majorbanks out in front. Anthony Flores going on the inside to take over that second spot, trying to make a move out in front in that Ferrari, trying to make a move coming into turn 3. Inside line from Anthony Flores, your amateur, leading the entire field right now. Anthony Flores out in front. As we've said the last couple weeks, Anthony's had some great runs, but has had some incidences that have knocked him back. So let's see how he can hang on to this. Watch that pressure of all these pro drivers right behind him as they come hard into the braking into turn 5. You see a couple guys going side by side. Everybody looks to be pretty clean coming around for the first half a lap or so, but the big surprise right now is Anthony Flores out in front in that pink, white, and black car number 7 Ferrari. Good battle right now between Romain Brito in looks to be 6th spot right now, trying to work his way up in that white and gray car number 23 up into the 5th spot, and can't quite hold the deal on right there, trying to get by Justin Nasir in the 41. But good side-by-side action as we work our way back through the field. Back there lurking behind him is Blake Reynolds in that 8th spot. So good clean start from these guys, just trying to get that heat into these tires, trying to get going and just get into a rhythm. This is kind of Blake's MO so far, is just kind of ride back for the first 5-10 minutes or so, get comfortable, let all the wiggles get out of everybody else, and then start driving through the field. But as they're coming around for the first time by, we're going to be jumping back to, looks like John Stoltz in the Mustang is getting a little sideways, and one car in front of him getting a little sideways. He had to check up and actually bump into the wall. Tough break for him as we're coming around for the first time by now. Coming into lap 2 into turn number 3 right now, you got Brandon Lambert in the 3rd spot, hanging on to it with that Corvette, but he's got Matt Kingsbury in that big, loud, throaty Mustang right behind him. As we've seen on some of these other tracks, Daniel, these Mustangs seem to have a little bit more leg down that straightaway. Do you think that's going to play into any kind of factor, since this has got this big, huge, long front straightaway?
Our director there trying to make us laugh on stream, and I'd say mission successful for him. I'm not going to repeat what he said, but let's just say it was a pretty solid remark. But my opinion of the Mustang, don't get me wrong, if I had one in real life, doesn't necessarily have to be a race car. I'd personally love it with a passion. I think they're pretty damn cool car. Old one, new one, not kind of the middle 2000s. That was kind of, I guess, bland for lack of better words. But you know what, having a car that's fast on the straights, it's helpful, especially with the track layout that we have today, but it's not going to be enough, I believe. There is a lot of corners there, especially blind corners as well, and you need that car to be stable. You need to be able to trust in where you're positioning that car, and that's why it's good to see a BMW here in the field. Don't get me wrong, I own one and I hate it with a passion, but as a race car and a performance vehicle, they're a pretty competent package. You see there the Ferrari on the outside, a little bit of understeer just then, but keeping that car going. But I have been keeping an eye through the field. It looks like we've got a battle happening back in 19th and 20th. That's Kevin Bogart and Josh Ondo at the minute. They're having a little bit of a scrap, just 0.2 of a second in it. So Kevin Bogart for the Too Fast racing car, that 911. Josh Ondo in the RD free sign. Okay. I'd like to say I understood that one, but I can't make any references or jokes on that. But anyway, he's there right behind it, and we have a whole stream of cars you see there on the track map in the top right-hand side, ladies and gentlemen. A whole pack of cars. So definitely, you don't want to do a high-risk maneuver because it could essentially cost you potentially 10 positions, as we saw what happened to Josh Stoltz.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the one thing about the start of the race. All these guys are grouped together. This is where you definitely do not want to make a mistake, and like you said, you will drop way back in the field. As we go back out in front, Anthony Flores out in front and open up to a 2-second advantage. Anthony is your top leading driver, but he's also your amateur driver, which is just absolutely insane. He is doing a fantastic job. Anthony in that all red ear-winged amateur. That's one way you can tell these guys apart. As we go to the championship standings right now, as we're reviewing our championship standings for the amateur class, Anthony Flores running in the 8th spot right now. Doing pretty good. Right now he's doing fantastic. But as I said, the last couple weeks, we've seen Anthony towards the front, towards the top 10, and then have a couple little incidences, make a little mistake, and drop back in the field. So that might be why he is back there in that 8th spot.
And this is something for you guys to think about as well. Sorry if you're about to say something, Daniel. I really don't care. I kind of care, but not really. These points are all are all overall points, right? So it's not a points battle between pro and am. If you win the race, regardless if you're a pro and an am, you get those points for winning the race. So right now, Anthony Flores is making up a huge chunk on his closest am rival right now, who is Johnson way back there in 12th.
Yeah, it could end up being a huge point haul for Anthony, but we are still very early into this race. It's only 5 minutes down and 40 minutes to go. So it is definitely going to see interesting how this works out as you see a whole herd of cars coming through there. Lots of Mustangs together coming around as you've got Kevin Fanning working his way up into the 15th spot right now, up 5 spots. And then right ahead of him is Daniel Colita in the car number 9. Daniel is actually up 7 spots from his starting position. So both these guys working their way back up in the field and starting to march their way towards the top. But still, it's a big surprise out in front with Anthony out in front of 44.5 last time by. That was faster than, let's see, most other people. Let's see, Romain Rateau with a 44.2, Youngwall with a 44.2, and Blake Reynolds with a 44.3. So definitely interesting to see. But we'll have to see how those Ferrari tires last, as this is an open setup race, Daniel, as we are going on the track now. These guys will run for the entire 45 minutes, so there's no need for pit stops. But, Daniel, last week we did see at Imola that a couple guys fueled to just the perfect amount, and we saw somebody fall off the podium just because he underfueled his car at the start of the race.
Well, they have always said that if you have too much left over on the car when you cross the finish line, then you didn't achieve the full potential, and sometimes that can have really aggressive effects. So obviously running out of fuel definitely sucks, and whoever had like the Bieber for a selfie, if you're married, power to you, because I've not got that kind of talent. But anyway, moving on, and you got to build the race car as tight as you can to the regulations, and build it to the race. And often what can happen, we saw it happen to George Russell the other day. He was one of the few drivers that did the single stop strategy, and it ended up his car was 1.5 kilos underweight. Don't get me wrong, in that case he could have done with a bit more fuel. At least that's what happened to one of the drivers here.
Yeah, no, it's anything that's left in the car is basically a waste. So, but last week we did see one of our top runners actually running in the second spot and just run out of fuel coming around on the last lap. So, this is always a tough thing. So as we're going back to Kevin Fanning, everything seems to happen around Kevin Fanning lately today. As they're coming around this long left-hander leading onto the front straightaway. One more long sweeper here. Runs over the rumble strip and comes through here. Not quite sure where we're losing it. Gets on the rumbles. Still able to hang on to it. So no harm, no foul from Kevin. Kevin in the 14th spot right now. But out in front, Anthony Flores stretching it out to 3.2 seconds right now. Very impressive from Anthony Flores with a 144.9 last time by. And then you got Matt Kingsbury in that third spot in that Mustang. He's trying to make a move on John as they're coming down into that front straightaway. Not too far behind Matt is Brandon Lambert in the other Corvette. So after that fourth place Corvette, then you see that pack of Porsches coming. So you see him looming in that back mirror a little bit. Oh, and Kingsbury gets a little sideways coming into that second parts, turn number 2. That's going to drop him back in the field to about the 10th spot. So tough break for Matt as you just really got to drive that section a little deep, and obviously went a little too deep. But Flores still with that 3-second advantage back to John Majorbanks in that second spot. Lambert about a half second behind him. And then you got a little bit of a gap with Nasir in 4th. Rateau in 5th. Here comes Blake Reynolds in that 6th spot. Daniel, we were talking about it earlier, and you were only coming up on 10 minutes down, and Blake Reynolds is already starting to work his way up through the field.
Well, he's definitely very aware that it's a 45-minute race, but there is basically the field is separated into 2 main packs as it stands. It goes from John Majorbanks in 2nd all the way down to about 10th place, and then you got a little bit of a reprieve around Jeff Johnson there, and then you got like another second pack really going on. But certainly, Kingsbury not having having that incident is not what he had in mind, but he has managed to stay in that pack. So good news for him. He will be able to potentially make a recovery there. You can see him at the back of your shot. That's him right there in the blue and white Mustang. So all is not lost yet for him, as we have a few words from our director.
Hey, nice. Getting this figured out now. Yeah, real quick, Daniel, one thing that we did not mention before we started the stream is it is not a forced pit stop for fuel. So keep an eye as it gets closer to the end of the race, how much fuel saving some of these drivers might have to do if they decided to try to underfuel it a little bit to get a bit of a, what's the word? Oh, you already said it, Mike. I'm going to go back into my hole now. Goodbye.
Sorry to give you a bit of a roast there.
Yeah, if the producer was actually listening to the broadcast, then he might have thought that instead of, but we'll just leave that alone. Anthony Flores still leading the way, stretching out to a 4-second advantage right now. But we've got Brandon Lambert up into the second spot now, so he was able to get by John on that last lap and get up into second. And now, here comes Romain Rateau leading the Porsche Brigade. Romain up into the third spot. Blake Reynolds looking on that inside to try to get by John as well. John closes that door and keeps Blake at bay in the fifth spot. So it's going to be a great battle as John Majorbanks still trying to hang on to that fourth spot. There's a whole
Marchbanks, Mike. It is Marchbanks.
One of these days I'll figure it out, okay? Just one of these days. But right behind him, I think that's a lot easier to say, Blake Reynolds in that fifth spot trying to get by. And, looking at that back wing of that Corvette, just waiting for his time. And we'll have to see if he can get him as they're coming into that last section right now. Coming around turn 15 and down into the front straightaway as we go back to Elias Romain in the 11th spot. Elias in that Ferrari sitting there right behind Casey O'Brien in the 10th spot. But still impressive showing right now, Daniel, from our top amateur. Anthony Flores leading down one more time down that front straightaway. How impressed are you to see, an amateur, which if you go by the I rating, 1.5, he's leading and pulling away from these guys?
Well, actually, he was one of the drivers that I noticed before the race, which, for lack of better words, I wondered if his account was sandbagging a little bit because he had great qualifying in such a strong field. So Algarve definitely on his Princess-approved track, or the Bombshell truly is being a bombshell today, doing that racing team very proud. But I think the best action happening right now is Ray Kingsbury trying to make a recovery, trying to get past Justin Nasser, as Nasser, him, and Blake, all three of them are fighting there. So it's a three-way battle going on. It looks like Blake Reynolds is in on that as well. No, my apologies, I've gone too far forward. Justin Nasser there. Justin Nasser, Christian Youngwall, and Ray Kingsbury. There's a three-car battle going on. It's a 41, 55, and a 25. And you see Mustang, Porsche, and Porsche. And surprisingly, it looks like one of the Mustangs has been able to pull away in that scenario. Well done, Justin, the Canadian driver.
Yeah, Nasir, it looks like he got a little too fast coming in there and got it a little sideways, and that's going to give Youngwall a chance to get by on the inside, and Ray Kingsbury actually to slide by on the inside as well, so knocking Justin back to that 8th spot. But right behind him is Matt Kingsbury from that earlier mistake. As you said, still hanging on to that second group right there. Matt hanging on to that 9th spot, still in position. It is still a long way to go as we're closing in on 14 minutes down. We still have a good, 30 or so odd minutes to left. So these guys still have a long way to go to work their way around. And as you back up front with that pink and white Ferrari, car number 7, Anthony Flores jumping back into that Romain Rateau in third. But he's still got Brandon Lambert in second. So Romain closing in on Lambert now, as they're in turn 3 right now, and Romain trying to get out, lead that Porsche Brigade, trying to come around and see what he can get around. Daniel, do you think, just from the early start here, what car do you think looks the best? Is it looking like the Porsches again?
I love the look of the Porsches, but I can't drive it, so that can't be my favorite. But I gotta say, Brandon Lambert, he's gonna have to keep Rateau well behind him and keep him under pressure. Now, Lambert, I don't know the guy personally. If he's got a sister called Miranda, she's certainly somebody I'd like to meet. Maybe, he's got a little bit of wealth. He might have got into cigarettes at some point, but he's having an absolutely fantastic driver at the minute. Up in second place. It's where he started, but you know what? The biggest thing is he's been able to maintain that for the Firelight Black Motorsports team.
Yeah, it did. But you've got the Porsches coming in, and as we talked earlier, Blake Reynolds up into the 4 spot now. So you got Rateau and Reynolds both up 4 spots from their starting position, working their way back up into the field. And it's like we said, slowly working their way up. As we jump back into that 11th spot, you got Elias Romain going on the inside of Casey O'Brien, taking that spot away. Gets a little wiggle out of it. KC goes around on that next turn on the inside and remains in the 10th spot. So this is a battle for your 10th spot. KC and Elias going at it. It's Ferrari on Ferrari down the front straightaway. See what this long draft section can go for Elias. See if he is tucked in close enough as we're going down that long front straight. But as we go back up front, we're back up into that 3rd and 4th spot of Blake Reynolds, but our producer is playing fun games with us, jumping us around real quick. So we go back to that battle with Elias and Casey. Casey getting out pushed off a little bit into that no man's land, and it's going to drop him back into the 11th spot as Elias going on the inside and taking over that 10th spot. But this little left-hander is a little tricky sometimes leading up. You really got to watch them as they start to step out, coming in there and down this downhill section into that hard 180 section. So Elias starting to pull away just a tiny little bit from Casey O'Brien. And then we jump back into that 17th spot as our good friend Kevin Bogart in that Too Fast Racing Porsche coming around right now. Still sitting in that 17th spot, trying to close in on Tom Brokaw in 16th. But we are still going a little crazy right now with our amateur out in front. Anthony Flores still hanging on to that about just over 3.5 second advantage now. But here is a great battle for that 2nd and 3rd spot. You've got Brandon Lambert in the 2nd in that white and black Corvette. Right behind him is that gray, white, and yellow car number 23 of Romain Rateau, and he's got a whole rear view mirror full of Blake Reynolds in that black and purple car as they're coming around the last section right now into the long sweeper, and they're looking for that good draft down that very long front straightaway. Romain dragging down the outside, trying to get a good run, and it just doesn't look like he's closing that gap very well. But as you see, our leader still 1:45.4. Still a fantastic lap time for an amateur as Blake looking on the inside. Romain pushes a little bit in turn 1. Blake looking for a place to get by. Can't quite stick the deal, but Romain puts his attack back out in front of him into Lambert. As you see Christian Youngwall and Ray Kingsbury going at it. This is a 4-way battle, Daniel, as they're coming in to that real tricky long downhill straightaway section.
Well, it looks like things are about to get very spicy indeed. As much as you want to battle, do you attack, do you defend, or do you just basically hold onto the wheels, put your head between your legs and start praying? I was going to say the last bit, but I couldn't say it on air, ladies and gentlemen, as they go from 2x2 to single file. Definitely a smart move there. As if we have a look with Ray Kingsbury, we've got the focus on now. He's in the 911. Ahead of him is Christian Youngwall. He's the gentleman that has the beaver-shaped, I think it's a beaver. A croaker, apparently, I'm informed. Obviously, I failed geography, but you don't really get a class going up where they teach you about animals, I guess. Biology would be the closest thing. Regardless, the 55 car, he has a face full of Porsche right behind him. The Corvette in third behind him there, and then another Porsche in the mix. So definitely, he's got to apply pressure. He's got to push. But if I was him, I wouldn't be forcing the error just yet. Stay behind this guy. Stay behind Christian and ride that draft all the way, because what he really needs to do is try and pull away from the 2 cars behind him. As we see Brian Sohn, the 21 car Penguin RC Simulation, he's had a little bit of a spin, one of the few Audi R8s in the field.
Yeah, a tough break for Brian, and the Audi is definitely not favored around this track, as I can speak from personal experience. Coming into that uphill section, you really get hard onto the braking here. Gets onto the rimble strips, gets on the inside of, I can't quite pick that car up, but gets on the inside of him as it is John Ebersol. Luckily, John Ebersol able to get around and keep going, but Brian Stone dropping back in the field just a bit. Hopefully didn't take too much damage as we quickly jump back up into the front with Flores leading the way. Still about a 4-second advantage, but we're back in that battle right now for the 5th and 6th spot. You've got Youngwall hanging on to the 5th spot. You've got Ray Kingsbury right behind him. Then we jump back out into the top spot. Here he comes. Blake Reynolds now up into the 2nd spot. and he is bringing Romain Rateau in tow. Right behind him as they're going to be coming down into, looks like middle of the track right now, but Blake Reynolds jumping back out into the second spot. 4-second gap right now as we've just passed 20 minutes down and about 25 minutes still left to go.
Mike, are you starting to feel a bit of VIR vibes here? Blake Reynolds was about exactly 4 seconds behind with 25 minutes to go, and he won that race.
I predicted it, did I not, when we started this race? So that is exactly how VIR works. You had Blake Reynolds starting about 7th or 8th in that 4th row, and about 25 minutes to go. It was about 4 to 5 seconds back, and we know how that race ended. Just for you, Daniel, just so you know, Blake won that race.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me in the slightest, as we're there with the 55, the Ford Mustang of Christian Youngwall, and he has got very much Ray Kingsbury right behind him. John Majorbank's right behind him as well. Justin Nasser, the Canadian driver, trying to get in on the action. Sadly, a little bit of a gap back for the other Kingsbury brother there, but these guys are going hard at it. And at the minute, they're going around turn 2, which I do believe is called Lagos, if I'm not mistaken. To me, it sounds like an exotic drink, but these guys, you know what? Beautiful thing about sim racing, ladies and gentlemen. If you're having the beer at the time, we can't tell, and we're not going to penalise you for it. Blake Edwards there, up in 2nd place, and it looks like he is actually starting to pull away from Rateau.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting to see where we end up. Flores is trying to run away and hide, but you've got two very fast Porsches closing that gap. But still, it's uber impressive to see our highest amateur right now out in front of everybody. But if you look on the standings right there, the little red markers next to the position, red is amateur, blue is pro. As you can see, in the 1st spot is our top running amateur. The next amateur is in 16th. And we're talking about a huge point spread. Imagine if he even still finishes in the top 5, over 10 places ahead of the next car. That could rocket him up into the point standings immensely. So definitely going to be interesting to see how he's able to hang on and keep going. Anthony Flores definitely out in front, but he's got that Blake Reynolds already starting to close that gap. So we'll have to see what these lap times look like as they come around for the first time by with him. So here we come. Anthony Flores down the front straightaway, crosses that timing and scoring with a 1:45.2. Blake Reynolds 1:44.6. So he's able to close in over a half a second just on that last lap alone. But he is bringing Romain Rateau. Rateau's going to be the smart one, and he's just going to hang on to that back wing of Blake and bring him up to the front. But they're also bringing Lambert along with them. So Brendan Lambert has not gone away. He is still hanging on to that 4th spot and is trying to get up front with these guys. And we'll have to see how he can do and still get in there. Ray Kingsbury, as we can kind of go through our lineup right now, in the 5th spot in that black and yellow Porsche. But he has got John Majorbanks in the 6th spot right behind him. And Justin Nasir in the 8th spot right behind him. In the 9th spot, we've got Matt Kingsbury. So still hanging on to that lead group. And then you got the 10th spot, Kevin Fanning. As we saw Kevin having some issues earlier as well, but still able to hang on to that 10th spot. We can drop back into 11th as we've got Elias Romain in the Ferrari, rounding in the 11th spot. 12th spot, you've got Casey O'Brien in another Ferrari. Paul Mikulicek in the 13th spot. Daniel Colita in 14th. Rounding out your top 15 is Tom Brokaw. And Daniel, I want to take the rest of the way through here.
I was going to say we're halfway there. Yeah, no, we're about halfway through the race, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to give you a little bit of an update. But you see, at the minute, the best action is happening right behind John Majorbanks. He is in 6th place right now. Christian Youngwall, I'd say he's right up his beaver at this point. But again, I've got the wrong animal. We're just in this right behind him. Our director's crying, but what an absolute fantastic battle going on there. And you can see there, Youngwall trying to use as much of the slipstream, having a little bit of a wiggle under braking, really trying to unshake that Corvette. Now, one thing you can try and do when racing is if you can't beat them on pace, beat them on pressure, ladies and gentlemen. And that doesn't mean you go and put them in the pressure cooker and set the temperature to 400. That means you do exactly like that. Force them into an error, make them go wide, and that has been an absolutely fantastic pass by Youngwall. And it looks like Banks is about to get passed by Nasser again as well.
Yeah, Banks is definitely starting to fall down these standings. That's one thing about doing that inverted 8. So the guy that's on the front row is going to be a little bit slower on pace and just going to have to try to defend and hang on to. But John doing a great job and still hanging on to that 7th spot. As we've got a good battle right now for what looks to be about 13th, 14th, and 15th. Looks like we may have a crash back in the pack here. Joshua Succi in the 27 car coming down into the section to the Corvette. Leading up, we saw a car earlier coming here a little too hot. This is definitely a spot where you can overcook the brakes, get on and gets a little sideways. Luckily, no harm, no foul. And we got another crash back here in the field with Marwan Mafta. And this is a tough little uphill left-hander. And doing that Mustang some duty here as he comes in to the right section and just doesn't want to turn. So we go back up into turn 1. Josh Undo in another Mustang. Hard into turn number 1. Gets on those rumble strips. Gets in through turn 2. Cries hard under braking into turn 3. And starts chasing the tail end around. Able to collect it and not lose too many spots. Looks like he only lost 1. So good, able to hang on to it from Josh Ondo. And it looks like we've got another car coming off the track, Travis DeFlumer in the 26. We've seen about 3 or 4 cars spin out there, Daniel. That's that tough section coming in towards the end of the track. It's one of those misleading turns where you've got that right-hander, but you got to be on the brakes as you're turning, as we see another car starting to spin around. So, you know, Daniel, the track temps, do you think this is paying into this, or are these guys just starting to push a little harder?
I would say it's actually weight transfer on that one, Mike. As you're going over that crest of the hill. Oh, ooh, that's got to hurt.
Oh, tough break from John Majorbanks. He was running in the 9th spot and not quite sure what happened as you see John going and battling it out. And going side by side. Oh, he hits he hits the sausage curb and runs right into that next car next to him and pushes him out into that outside wall and just destroys the back of that car. So tough break for John. He's going to have to jump in the pits and get a repair job on that. He's not going to be able to finish the race in that condition. As we're coming up on 28 minutes down, we are closing into that final 1/3 of the race. Still got a great battle in that mid-top field here. Oh, look at this. Here is Anthony Flores out in front. And here comes Blake Reynolds, a full second faster last time by, closing into less than 1 second. And, within the last 5 to 10 minutes, Blake has been able to close in 4-second gap on Anthony Flores. And no disrespect to Anthony, but Blake Reynolds is a very, very fast driver, and there's just nothing to be ashamed of to have him chase you down, in that amount of time. But Daniel, as we jump back into the middle of the field, you see Kevin Flanning in that 9th spot, still trying to close in on Justin Nasir. And I keep doing that, but Kevin Fanning in that gray and number 911 Mustang. Do you think that's a little odd to have a Mustang by the number 911?
Definitely wouldn't be what I have in mind, but I understand we've got a guest commentator as well. Foghorn Leghorn has stepped in the booth, and he's going to have a go. You listen here now, boy. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got Blake Reynolds there in 2nd place for the Soul Pack Precision Racing car. He is trying to make a move on Flores. Had absolutely fantastic pace, and it's fair to say he is going to be the head honcho in this situation very, very, very soon.
Great job from Foghorn. Leading us around that last time by.
It was okay, but he still had a bit of a British accent. So, I mean, got to get rid of the British accent, which might be a little bit difficult, Daniel. But sorry, back to the race.
It's Foghorn Leghorn instead of being the French version. So
Lego.
30. We're at the 30-minute mark, so we got 15 minutes still left to go. And Aaron Flores has been out in front pretty much this whole race, and he makes a big mistake coming into turn 3, and Blake Reynolds goes on the inside and takes over the lead. So Aaron Flores into the second spot. And here comes Romain Rateau, is that other Porsche right behind him. And then you got quite a bit of a gap back to Brandon Lambert in the 4th spot. So, again, there's nothing to be ashamed of as Flores hanging on to that 2nd spot and Romain right behind him. Like I said, he's been doing a fantastic job out in front and holding on. And that almost looked like he just said, you know what, go ahead and take it. I know you've got this, Daniel. Does that what it look like to you? Is he just kind of conceded the spot to him?
Oh, absolutely. It's kind of, for lack of better terms, if I look at like Flores' I rate and then look at the I rating of Reynolds and Rateau, don't get me wrong, you know, Flores has had an absolutely fantastic drive. Like, his best lap would be a 145.1. Currently, Rateau, he's in the 44 range, as is Blake Reynolds. So, you know, actually, Reynolds only got him beat for last lap, not by a lot, but for best lap, you know, there's about a second difference in the pace. And you know what? Flores has been pretty smart there. He's got out of the way. He's moved over. And what he's going to try and do, I'd say, is stay on under the rear wing of that 23 car of Romain Rateau and try and keep him pulled away from Brandon Lambert.
Yeah, and he's definitely looking to try to haul in those points as he's got a 10-place gap back to your next amateur. The next amateur is Kevin Bogart in the 13th spot. So, you know, Anthony's looking to bring those points into that final championship position. And Kevin hanging on to that 2nd spot in amateur. And he's got a couple spots back to the 3rd place amateur of Jeff Johnson as we're going on to Casey O'Brien in the 28 car. Looks like Casey may have had a little bit of a challenge into this last little bit of a left-hander, hard under braking, chasing the tail around, and with the track temperatures of this high, that seems to be the thing is these cars start to step out just a little bit, and you just cannot hang on to it. But back up with Anthony Flores in the 3rd spot, but back here we go into the 13th spot of Kevin Bogart, working his way up into Daniel Colita in the 12th spot. So good battle from Kevin and Daniel as Kevin looks on the inside of that Mustang. Can't quite close the deal on it as we got about 12 minutes still left to go. No, Daniel, you cannot sing on the broadcast. I appreciate the effort, but we will draw the line there. Justin Nasir in the 8th spot. This is where our big battle is right now for 6th, 7th, and 8th. You've got Matt and Christian and Justin going at it. And then Ray Kingsbury just a little ways away in that 5th spot. So these guys still trying to reel them in, but you know, everybody's pretty grouped down into a pretty, you know, stable position. I think this is going to be our closest battle right now for the 7th and 8th spot. Justin Nasir pushes it just a little wide, trying to close that gap, get that draft down that front straightaway, but that Mustang pulling down the front straightaway and able to hold on to that advantage and hang on to that 7th spot for one more time. Working our way around with 34 minutes down. We've got 11 minutes still left to go as we jump back into the 15th spot of Tom Brokaw in that kind of a lime green Tim, you know, that's why you don't put me on the lead spot, okay? That's what I'm just saying. Tim Brokaw in the 15th spot. Yeah, go ahead and fire me. Casey O'Brien in the 14th spot, right behind him. So they're coming into turn 3, as we like to call that, Lagos. And that uphill left-hander down into the Tory VIP section, turn number 5. And hard under braking into these guys. Those Mustangs are a definite handful to try to get under braking, but you're able to get it squared up just a bit and can't quite hold on as we're jumping back to Casey O'Brien. This is one we saw earlier, I believe. And so, man, Production trying to do KC a little dirty there, Daniel.
Oh, definitely. He obviously has a little bit of a secret crush, and now the world knows it. But you can see there, Romain Return, the French driver, actually, he's there in second. I'm not going to work out what time it is for him at the minute, but it's fair to say it's pretty friggin' early. As you see there, Paul in the 77 car with what appears to be his face on a cucumber. We're not going to ask how it got there or where the cucumber's been, but he's having a good time there in 11th for the Penguin car. The BMW M4 there, but I just seen a move. Actually, it was Tim Brokaw and Kevin O'Brien, I believe. Sorry, Casey O'Brien. So Casey is currently trying to make a little bit of a recovery after having that over rotation earlier on, and he's side by side with the Mustang at the minute. Definitely very, very different cars to drive. And that corner we keep seeing these guys spin out, a lot of it is weight transfer. With that blind crash, you imagine the weight as you go over ends up heavily on the front wheel. And then all of a sudden the back end gets light and you get that over rotation, as we see KC getting that pass slam dunk and done. As Christian Youngwall, he's there in the 55 with right behind him is Justin Nasser.
Nasser looking on that inside, can't quite get the pressure done. That Porsche definitely a little bit stronger on braking, but couldn't quite close in enough on that Mustang of Youngwall. As we've got about 9 minutes still left to go for these guys, so still plenty of time to go. As we're back with Tim Brokaw, and production is just bouncing us all over the place. Kevin Bogart in the 13th spot he's been sitting on that back wing now of Daniel in the Mustang, and just hasn't quite been able to close that deal yet. He might be biding his time, just waiting to make a move, but time's starting to run out. We've got about 8.5 minutes still left to go. About 6 more laps for these guys to get around, and Daniel going a little high through that section, and here comes Kevin Bogart closing in, and this is going to be that tough left-hand section right here. And that Mustang steps out just a little bit, and that's going to give Kevin a chance to get a good run on him. He's going to wait to get a good run coming around this long, real kind of a sweeper right-hander. You drink it out all the way out, and then take it all the way out to the outside line. You suck that tire off the track, and you go down the front straightaway. Kevin Bogart right behind Daniel Colita, trying to draft down that front straightaway. Can't quite close the deal. He is starting to inch his way a little bit, but not enough space. Not close enough. But here's where that other tight section of turn 2 is. You really want to watch it and get hard under braking into turn 3. And it just, Kevin just couldn't quite close the deal on him there.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm sorry. I will promise, Daniel, you're up next. But no, it's wild. So, I mean, we've talked about this before, but those Mustangs have obviously, during the 24-hour race, everything got tuned to that Mustang because of the lack of power these things had. But down the straightaways, it doesn't matter if they're lacking power or not. They are very still quick, no matter how much they struggle on the tires.
So by the sounds of it, it is a typical American sports car. It can go round the corner. Oh, no, it can't. It likes to hit pedestrians, but it's wicked in a straight line. So Mustang not able to quite shake that yet, as Kevin Bogart is very hot on the back. As we got a quick replay here, it's Justin Nasser. We've been watching him have a battle earlier, and yeah, this is the crash warning that I've got. So it's fair to say it's gone sideways for him. As you see there, he's there bringing that 911, still hot in pursuit with pressure from behind, and the pressure has been enough. He's forced an error and just clips the Mustang as well. Both cars now cosmetically and potentially mechanically challenged.
Yeah, tough break for Justin. Had a great race going, just pushed a little too hard. A lot of these turns you want to carry so much speed, and you try to just lead the car around, and it just sometimes it just goes around on you. But Kevin Fanning getting tapping that corner of that car just a little bit, but able to hang on to that 8th spot. And Elias Romain in 9th right behind him. So good battle for 8th and 9th, as Elias was able to get by Nasir and take over that 9th spot. And trying to close in, trying to take advantage of Fanning having a little bit of damage to that Mustang, as we are closing in on just over 5.5 minutes still left to go. Blake Reynolds out in front and has opened up to a 3-second advantage on Romain Rateau. And then you got about 4 seconds back to our amateur leader of Aaron Flores, doing a fantastic job. Anthony, I know somebody, but we'll leave it there. And then in the 4th spot, though, we're jumping back into 13th is Kevin Bogart still with a great battle with Daniel Kalita. Daniel, these guys have been going at it for the last like 4 or 5 laps.
Well, that is definitely the best kind of racing. Often when the field spreads out, it does get a little bit stale, but these guys definitely not having that problem. Bogart is actually the hard charger in the race right now. My apologies. I got the wrong one. He's currently up 6 positions. It is Kevin Fanning who's the hard charger. My apologies there, but it's fair to say he is keeping Daniel Coletta hard under pressure. Mustang definitely having a little bit of a wiggle, will not be as nimble as the Porsche. The Porsche should really be able to reel it in under the hard braking zones, but on the straights, as Adam was saying, the Mustang being an absolute weapon. You see there stepping out just a little bit, having a very hard time getting the power down.
Yeah, it's this track temperature being well over 110 degrees leads to these cars being just a tiptoe. You having to put an egg underneath your foot, under that accelerator, to try to keep these cars underneath you. And if you get a little hard on that throttle, you have to chase that thing around, and it chases you all the way around. As it looks like we've got another battle going on right now as we're switching over to Elias Romain in the 9th spot. And right on that back bumper of Kevin Fanning. Kevin with a little bit of front end damage, so that could hamper his overall top speed, but Elias is all over his back bumper of that Mustang as they're coming into probably one of the harder sections of this track. This is where you really, you don't get on the brakes very much. You just really want to carry your speed, but a lot of turning and braking in some of these sections as Elias closes in under that back wing of that Mustang, trying to get into a position. He could be just kind of placing himself and closing in on that section. This is the section we've seen quite a few guys spin out. They push in real hard through here, chase that tail end around as Elias looking on that inside. Can't quite get there, but Kevin goes a little high around there, and that just opens the door for Elias as they're coming in to what looks to be turn 13 right now. And Elias coming on that inside. Can't quite close the deal, but he is just going to sit back here and wait through this long right-hander, this kind of a double apex as they're coming around. Elias Romain trying to get a good run off this last turn 15. Trying to get close enough to that Mustang to get a good run and get a good draft, but I don't know that he's going to be close enough. As we see now, we've got Brandon Lambert up into the 3rd spot now. Brandon able to take advantage of Anthony Flores. Anthony looks like he made a little mistake. He may have overcooked his tires early, Daniel, and he might be just tumbling down the field just a bit.
Well, the good thing for Flores is he is still about, hang on, not 7. Hang on, I'm doing some maths. 9 positions, there we go. I used to be good at math, then what happened? But he's currently 9 positions ahead of his nearest class leader. And not only that, he will score, its overall points, if I've understood this correctly. So he's going to have an absolutely stonker of a day. But right now, Kevin Bogart still under pressure there, actually applying pressure to Daniel Coletta in the number 9 Mustang. And it's fair to say, in the later stages of this race, as the director and my co-commentator did predict, the Mustang's really having a hard time. But again, it is a different driving dynamic between these different cars. Now, the BMW I've always found is quite neutral. The Porsche, you've got to be very heavy on the brakes, and the Mustang seems to be an absolute sledgehammer going down the straight. So there's different driving styles, and the cars will have different strengths and weaknesses in different parts of the track.
No, absolutely, you are right. And these Mustangs seem to be, really able to stretch their legs out on these longer straightaways and take advantage of that section, and then just able to hold their own when they come into the turns. As we are still watching Kevin Bogart trying to get close enough to that Mustang, trying to get a good draft when they come onto that front straightaway as they're coming in to what looks like turn 13, and trying to get around up into this long right-hander. The last time they came here, Kevin wasn't able to hang on to that back bumper. But as we come back up, white flag one more time around. Elias Romain in the 9th spot, trying to close in on Kevin Fanning as he comes hard into turn 1, tries to get onto those rumble strips, trying to use every inch of the track to close in on Kevin Fanning. Kevin still able to hold on with that damage, but Elias a little hard into braking and pushes out and drops back about a half a second back. And as we still have Anthony Flores in that 4th spot, still trying to hang on to 4th, and he's got Ray Kingsbury closing in behind him. But this is still your battle for 12th and 13th, as Kevin Bogart's still all over the back wing of Daniel in the Mustang, as Kevin jumps way outside trying to get in there. But here is your battle for 4th and 5th right now. Ray Kingsbury in the 5th spot in that black and yellow Porsche, trying to take advantage of that amateur leader of Anthony Flores in that bright pink and black Ferrari. Flores was out in front all race long. At that first whole half of the race, able to hang on to it. Oh, and Ray Kingsbury overcooks it and spins out. Here comes a whole pack of cars to come by. Matt Kingsbury, Youngwall goes by to take over 5th and 6th. They take advantage of Ray just looping it out on his own. But here is your battle for that 8th and 9th spot. Banning still hanging on to that spot with Elias Romaine in the 9th spot. And here comes your winner down the front straightaway one final time. Blake Reynolds taking the win. We got tied up with some action going on, and we did not get to watch them come across. But Romain Rateau finishing in 2nd. Then you got Brendan Lambert finishing in 3rd. Your first amateur finishing in the 4th spot, Anthony Flores. Matt Kingsbury able to do a little bit of recovery and finish in the 5th spot. Christian Youngwall in 6th. Ray Kingsbury in 7th. And in the 8th spot, Kevin Fanning able to hold off that hard charging of Elias Romaine. Justin Nasir finishing in the 10th spot. Paul Mikolajczyk in the 11th spot. Then you got Daniel Colita still hang on to that spot. He is able to hang on to 12th. Kevin Bogart finishing in 13th as we watch the rest of the field come around. And Daniel, this was definitely no loss of excitement for these guys in this whole 45-minute race.
Well, it looks like there is still battles going on. I see that DeFleur and Josh Stoltz are having a little bit of a battle for the amateur class as they're heading there very shortly towards the line. And oh my gosh, DeFleur has no front. Well, he's gone the full John Travolta, and it is a face-off experience. And it looks like the Mustang has been able to sneak by of Josh Stoltz, the number 99 Mustang, as they're heading down around the final corner. And it's fair to say at this point, Stoltz is going to be looking in his rearview mirror, and he's either flipping the bird or waving goodbye, but he has got that position stolen as he crosses the line.
Let's see what happened to Travis. And it looks like on his white flag, he had the front bumper going into turn 1. Let's see what happened to Travis on this last lap. Trying to hang on to it. Gets a whole lot of sausage there. Gets been out and whack, rips that whole front end right off and deposits in turn 2. So good battle for these guys coming around at the end. And it looked like Josh actually kind of checked up and let De Flumiere get by. So as we will come through our finishing order as the last couple cars have come across, and your winner overall in the Pro Division, Blake Reynolds, for what to be 3 weeks in a row. Blake taking the win. Romain Rateau finishing in that 2nd spot. Brandon Lambert finishing in 3rd. Your first amateur finishing in the 4th spot, Anthony Flores for Bombshell Racing. In the 5th spot, you got Matt Kingsbury. In the 6th spot, Christian Youngwall. 7th going to be Ray Kingsbury. Kevin Fanning finishing in 8th. Elias Romaine in 9th. And then you had Justin Nasir rounding out your top 10.
In 11th place, we had Paul Mikolajczyk with Daniel Coletta in 12th, with Kevin Bogart in 13th. We saw these guys having a battle throughout a good portion of that race, with Tim Brokaw in 14th. Casey O'Brien getting caught a little bit with an incident there. He was 15th, with John Eversole. I think he's currently the amateur winner, if I remember rightly. Amateur leader, sorry, for points. He's there in 16th, with Jeff Johnson in 17th and Brian Sabalski in 18th.
In the 19th spot goes to Brian Sohn, doing a good job on recovery on that to finish in the 19th spot. Carson Quint finishing in 20th. Peter McDade in 21st. Josh Stoltz in 22nd. Travis De Flumiere. Bumperless Travis finishing in the 23rd spot. Josh Ondo finished 24th. Joshua Succi in 25th. Marvin Mofta 26th. John Majorbanks in 27th. Nathan Fennell in 28th. Gary Freeman in 29th. Justin Hall did not start, and neither did Jason Lynn. So definitely no lack of effort from these guys, no lack of excitement from these guys. But wandering around the paddock, I get to see our first place winner in the Pro Division, and we will get him in for an interview. Blake Reynolds, you and I have been we've been doing some interviews here in the last couple weeks. So this is now, what, 3 weeks in a row, I think it is now?
I think so, yeah.
So great race from you. And we commented on the broadcast a little bit ago about this is very familiar to the VIR race. You started about 7th or 8th, and then at about 25 minutes to go, you had about a 4-second gap to the lead, and then the next thing you know, boom, you're on the leader. Is it just kind of strategy for you, or is that just kind of how the race worked out for you today?
It's a little bit of strategy. Every race I try to, when I'm getting the tires like on the race start, I'm not too worried about people behind me, I guess. Like if you just keep up a pace enough and don't use the tires, like people won't really pass you if you just kind of slightly are a little bit more defensive. Like, you know, this track is particularly tough on this first lap. There's a lot of dive bomb zones, like the first like 7 corners. So, you know, if you kind of just fade, you know, you're lightly on the brake, kind of fade it in, don't really absolutely destroy the apex, you know, destroy the tires on the first couple of laps. And if you bring the tires in slow, they'll treat you very good at the end. I'm sure you guys are seeing my purple lap times there at the end. That is the first week I've had that happen. The tires just, they felt like they were getting destroyed at this track, but for some reason, right at the end, they were firing up.
Yeah, no, you definitely closed that gap on Anthony Flores, and I mean, honestly, just not to take away from your lead, your win, but how impressive was that to see, you know, Anthony, the top amateur, out in front and almost had a 5-second advantage at the point where you got up into second.
Yeah, I kind of knew he was pretty quick. Every practice, every week, if you look at the practice results, he is like in the top 10, sometimes even top 5. So it's kind of like, is this guy really an AM? His iRating suggests it, but you know, if you look at his pace, he's actually pretty quick. It's just the results haven't been there for him.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I think in the future you might see him be promoted to pro, but it might be too late in the season already. We did have to promote. I say we. I mean, the league had to promote. Who's that team? The Summit Racing.
Oh yeah.
They weren't here.
Yeah, not here tonight.
The AM guy. I forget his name. He got promoted, but yeah, they weren't here today. I think they just didn't prep a set or were busy or doing something else. So.
Yeah, possibly. But you know, back to you, Blake. A fantastic race from you today. You know, 3 weeks in a row. Next week, Bathurst. What's your thoughts on next week?
I think I told y'all last week that I liked this track, but I was bad. Well, I showed up to practice, I guess, and, you know, did some laps, and I kind of liked it. Or, you know, I was also pretty fast, so, you know, oh well. So I guess I'll go into Bathurst, because in the past, I like Bathurst, but I've been destroyed there before. Like, not... You know, I've also been destroyed, but I mean, I've been destroyed in pace as well. So we'll see how that goes. You know, the field's really kind of. I think you're kind of seeing how the field will be throughout the season. There certainly are the power players, and this might be, you know, where you see the championship lie in terms of results of what you see tonight in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, definitely. The cream is definitely rising to the top right now. So, Blake, congratulations on your win. Again, do you want to give a shout out or thanks to anybody while you're in the booth with us?
Sure thing. Solpec Precision Racing, my beautiful purple car. Partners, I think, well, Solpec, Bruzy, you guys for broadcasting, SimCAR, Penguin RC for title sponsorship, Too Fast Racing also for title sponsorship. Ray Kingsbury for the setup. He did all the work. I just get to drive it. I'm a lucky guy. And I think that's it.
All right. Well, congratulations again, Blake, and look forward to see you next week in Australia.
Yep, thank you.
And that was our pro winner, Blake Reynolds. And Daniel, I think we have our amateur winner in the booth now.
Well, Anthony, what a absolutely fantastic drive for you. Started on the pole, and to be fair to you, you held it for a long, long time. Tell us very briefly, you know, how did you manage such success today?
It was good practice and good friends to help me out. That's the main thing. Had a bad week last week at Imola, and I kind of wanted redemption for myself.
Well, I think you certainly did redeem yourself, having an absolutely fantastic job, coming fourth place and having such a huge advantage over the rest of the amateur field. But Anthony, before we let you go, is there anybody you'd like to thank today?
I'd like to thank my teammates, Elias and Pete McDade. They've definitely been a big help trying to get me to race and drive correctly and kind of learn how to do these things. And everybody that's been a part of SimCAR to allow me to do this with them. There's a bunch of great people here, and I definitely am enjoying every bit of it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Anthony Flores, amateur winner today, and an absolutely fantastic drive done by him. And here's a look at the upcoming broadcasts.
Upcoming broadcast on Slow Motion Broadcasting on Sunday, August 11th. You've got the Formula Fords at Imola. And then you got Weekend Warriors race number 2 on Sunday with Spec Fords at Zandvoort. XSLR on Sunday as well with the Asphalt Street Stocks at Nürburgring. We know that's going to be fun. And if you enjoyed the GT3 battle here next week with SimCAR, is actually going to be at Mount Panorama at Bathurst. So going to be an exciting race next week for these guys. And we'll get this broadcast wrapped up. And thank you to SimCAR for a fantastic race, Penguin RC and Too Fast Racing. This is Slow Motion Broadcasting in the broadcast booth. Adam Thompson screwing up the cameras all night long. And thank you, Daniel, for joining us in the booth tonight for the first time. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with you. I am Mike Braun. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week from Australia.
I see a Budweiser. Go ahead and hold it up.
Yes. There's
That was
our
the
Budweiser.
biggest clue.
Yes, right
Doing
there.
it for Dale.
Man, it's so many gimmicks, right? I feel like they're making it a lot more complicated than it needs to be. I mean, a lot of people, you get polarizing opinions on DRS.
I know you guys know exactly what I'm talking about here, but sometimes the effort, it's all about the boys. You know, like, hey, you
It
know,
is.
life sucks sometimes, and you need
Yes.
the boys.
iRacing kind of always has a tendency to kind of buff
Yes.
the new cars just a little bit. I'm not going to go on record saying it's because they want people to spend money on their platform and buy all the new
Conspiracy
content.
confirmed.
But
Yes.
but